Well, when I first met my wife, my buddy and I was cruising around and she knew my buddy and she waved at him. And we stopped and she was waiting in front of the church for church to start. And the first thing she done is invite us to go to church. And I just returned from my mission and was looking for a spiritual and good lady. And that really impressed me when the two of them, they could have been out having lots of fun and doing other things, but they were sitting in front of the church waiting for it to start.
So
And,
once you, how did you ask her on your first date? What was that like?
well, I just asked her if she'd like to ride home with us. She was working here in Blackfoot, and she was working as secretary for Anderson Lumber, and so she lived here in Blackfoot. So I asked her if she'd like to ride home with us, and she did. We had a nice visit going home. And after we dropped her off, Dallas says, "You think you'll ask her out again?" I said, "Yeah, I was quite impressed with her. I think I will." Well, she had another boy that she was pretty fond of, so it
Oh
took me.
boy.
So, but I don't know. When I walked her to her door, I just reached over and give her a kiss. I think it was the first girl I ever kissed well, it was only another girl I ever did kiss. In fact, I just felt impressed to give her a kiss. And when I got done, she says, "Wow."
You must have done it right then.
That just tickled me to death.
You must have done it right.
He was a good kisser. He is a good kisser.
There we go.
But I don't know, just her personality and the spirit she carried with her just really, really impressed me.
So how far into dating did you decide you wanted to get married, and what made you decide like she was the one?
Well, to be honest with you, I never dated very many girls in my high school, or I've dated very few girls, but there's just something about Sonia that just impressed me. So I think with 4 or 5 dates, I kind of felt within myself she was the one. I kept after her. I was persistent.
When I went home, training that we have
No,
now,
first
it
time
was 11.
I'd been through the temple before when I went on my mission, and back then it was all live, and I was looking forward to kneeling on the altar and having Sony sealed to me for time and all eternity. And we've had a wonderful life together. We really have. She's backed me in all my decisions. In fact, when we've made most of our decisions together. We've planned together. When I've need to borrow money, we went to go together at the bank to borrow money, and she's been our secretary and keeps track of everything. Like I told her, I'll go buy things, you pay for them.
I think that's a good system, right?
It has been. It's worked out real good. Be honest with you, I can't think of a thing that I would change in our married life. Our first anniversary, we decided to go visit one of the temples in Salt Lake, and we went to Salt Lake Temple. Got done, I says, in our married life, I'm going to take you to every one of the temples. Well, I'll give that idea up. I think we've been to
42.
42 temples altogether. That's where we've tried to go each year on our anniversary to a different temple.
It's definitely more than most, for sure. I mean, what are we up to? Close to 200 now?
Close to 200.
So I know for a lot of people, when they're first married, you don't have a lot of money. You probably don't have the job
No,
you want.
no.
Can you kind of talk about what situation you guys were in when you were first married?
Well, when we was first married, before we got married, I was working for a farmer out in Rockford. He was a big spud farmer, and he'd had some health problems the summer before, and he'd kind of asked me if I wouldn't just more or less run the farm under his supervision. So Sonia and my brother and I had batched it out in a little house on his farm, and so Sonia and I had wallpapered and got the house all fixed up to live in. And a week before we was married, he passed away. And so we got married and spent the night in Pocatello in a motel and come back the next day to his funeral. And so there we was without a home to live in, no job. And my older brother Condon come and says, if you need a little bit of money to go on a honeymoon, he says, I'll loan it to you. So Condon, give me a Kleenex. So Condon give us $100 so we went on a short honeymoon. But the night of our wedding, they decided they was going to split Sonia and I up, and when we had a reception, and well, we ended up together. She fought like a bear. But anyway, they took us back to Pocatello, to Idaho Falls, out to a big chicken dinner, and we had a great time. And when we was leaving, why, this had been snowing, the road was real slick, and we had a wreck. A car run into us, and so we spent probably an hour out in the cold. 1 o'clock in the morning out in the cold. We really wasn't dressed for the occasion. So the next morning, Sonia and I got in our little red Chevy car to go on our honeymoon. Well, she come down with the flu, cold, so she laid in the back seat, sick, most of our honeymoon.
Man, and where did you guys go?
Well, we didn't just had the $100, and I'd never met your mother or Sonia's mother, and so we went to Bozeman, Montana. That's where mother was living, and we went to Bozeman, Montana to see her. And then, of course, it was in the wintertime or March, and it's still pretty cold, but we stopped a lot of on the way around. We stopped a lot of the little places and done a lot of looking around, but she didn't feel good all while we was on her honeymoon. And then we come home, and of course, not having that little place out there to live in, why, we had to move in my folks for a couple of weeks until we found a place in town to live. And we was really lucky. Sonia belonged to the 8th Ward, and one of the young men in the 8th Ward was a bishopric, Wilmer Wheeler. And I went to church with her, and he come up and asked me if I had a job. And I said, well, no, I really don't right now. He said, we're looking for a hired man to help us on the farm. And so he had a little white house that him and his wife lived in. They had built a new brick home, and so Sonia and I moved in the Wheeler's house, and So we got to move out of my folks' house and had a home of our own. So we spent this. She went out with me on the farm lot. She was still secretary of Anderson Lumber there, but in all any spare time, we just drive out on the desert together, and she helped me irrigate spuds and wheat, and that was most of my job was irrigating.
Okay.
But I really enjoyed working for Wilmer and his dad Austin, and they just took us in like they'd known us forever.
Oh, that's nice.
Had us give us a big plot in their yard where we raised our own garden, and so and the nice thing about it, before I met Sonia, I'd met her sister long before, and so where Ferris and I were bashing it, we had bought Sonia's mother's refrigerator and washing machine and what else? A stove from her sister that lived there in Rockford. We used to, before I met Sonia, we used to buy all of our eggs and milk and things from Connie.
So you kind of had a connection there.
And Connie tried, I guess she spent quite a while trying to, different maneuvers trying to get Sonia and I together before before I had to go to Lord Aberdeen to meet her.
It ended up working out though, huh? She had a feeling.
Yeah.
So you worked on a few different farms at this point. When did you really decide that you loved farming and that's just kind of what?
Oh, I've loved farming ever since I was able to stand behind a horse and drive it. I mean, I think I had an ideal childhood. I mean, I had 4 brothers and 3 sisters, and we all worked together. We ate together. I mean, working side by side, my 2 older brothers a lot bigger than me, but we worked side by side. Dad usually run 10 to 15 cows, milk cows, and us 3 older boys, the family, milked them night, morning, before school and after school, and Dad always told us, he says, when you get your work done here, you can go work for your neighbors to earn money to buy your school clothes and things. So Galen, Condon, and I had the reputation of being the best workers in Riverton, and so I got to work for most of my neighbors, hauling hay and following the thrashing machine around, thrashing grain, and but I've always loved farming, especially animals. I know when I was about 10 years old, one winter a big band of sheep went past our place, and after it went past, well, I noticed a sheep out in the middle of the field that they'd left, and I walked out there to see if I could get her, and she had a little lamb. I mean, it was the last of February, and she'd already had a little lamb, but she had a little lamb beside her. And so I took the ewe and the lamb to the house, and then that spring I joined the 4-H program, and I really enjoyed 4-H. I took that lamb and I showed it at the fair, but I've just always loved to work in the soil. In fact, as I work the soil and plant a little seed and watch things grow, it just makes me feel like I'm working hand in hand with our Father in heaven. I'm just helping our Father in heaven as we work together, and I've just always loved the farm, loved working with animals. But after we'd only been married a year. I worked for Wilmer Wheeler a year, and
You worked that summer.
that summer, and then I got a job at Anderson Lumber. Sonia was working there at Anderson Lumber, and I got a job working at Anderson Lumber. I started out as delivery boy, and then they put me in as yard manager, and so I worked there for a couple of years. But in the meantime, after we left Wilmer Wheelers, why a neighbor up here, Stan Elison, come to me one day and he says, "I understand you'd like to go in the dairy business." And I says, "Yeah, I have thought a lot about it if things work out." And he says, "Well," he says, "I saved this dairy for my son, but he's wants to go into service." He said, "Would you be interested in taking over the cows?" He says, "You can rent my barn and my pasture and just make monthly payments to me out of your milk check." And boy, I just walking on air, because boy, that just thrilled me. And so we signed the contract, and he had a grade A setup, so the milk was grade A milk, and so I got a good price out of it. And so I worked for Anderson Lumber and milked cows and tried to help my father. He was still farming here, and trying to help my father because his health was getting a little bit bad. And we moved into a little trailer house there where the dairy was. So we had a home to live, and that's where our first daughter was born. Katrina was born there when we was living in that little trailer house. And so, but I've always wanted to farm. That's when I was going to school. I had no desire to go on to college because I wanted to farm.
So when you first had this opportunity with the dairy, you know, because I think a lot of people who grew up on farms or ranches or in agriculture, they love the lifestyle. They love seeing things progress from your own work, from your own hard work, and that's a lot of the dreams. But for a lot of people, it's
Right.
hard to make happen. You know, for a lifestyle when you're an adult and having family and kids. So how did that feel to, you know, get that opportunity to potentially have something to work on for the rest of your life?
Like I say, I just felt like everything just fell in my lap. I mean, I was thrilled with it. I mean, I had to work hard. Like I say, I was farming and working a full-time job at Anderson Lumber and milking them old cows twice a day, but I enjoyed it every minute of it. I'd leave the house at 4 in the morning, and a lot of times I wouldn't be back till 10 at night. Of course, every time Sonia didn't have to work, she was out in the field with me, or where I was at, she was with me, and we've just worked side by side.
Boy, and I think I'm tired when I sit and have to do my desk job and then go work on a house. You were on your feet all day from
I
4 to
was.
10. That's rough.
Yeah,
You
I
have to
just,
really love it.
yeah, I did. I really enjoyed it.
How was it, you know, having that opportunity for your kids? I know it's just with the opportunity I'm at right now. I when I go back and you know visit my parents and get to take Louis out on the ranch a little bit, I sure miss it. And so, how was it being able to raise your kids doing something that you love?
Well, there again, we worked together as a family. I mean, my all five. Well, my youngest daughter didn't milk cows because she had asthma so bad, but all four of my daughters and Glenn milk cows, fed baby calves. I know. I think Glenn was close to 8 years old when I just turned the calf feeding over to him. I mean, he done the feeding of the calves, and one of them got sick. He gave him the shot, doctored him, and I don't know. My kids learned responsibility. I mean, I asked my children to do something, and I never had to worry about it not being done. And you know, I don't think any of them has look for a job very much. They've all had good jobs.
I'm sure there was times as kids and, you know, bratty teenagers where they weren't super happy to go work and get their chores done before they could go play,
Oh,
but I'm sure it's really paid off for them now.
yeah. I know my oldest daughter, Katrina, when she was just real small, she wanted to milk cows. And I said, well, you're just a little bit short. I says, we had the raised stalls in the barn, and I says, a cow might kick you right in the face. I says, when you get up this tall, I mean, I measured on the barn's stalls there. So when you get up this tall, why then we'll let you start milking cows. Well, she never hardly made it up all tall, but she in just a short time she was out milking the cows, and she was a good cow milker. She loved the cows like I did. And my daughters were and Glenn were all good cow milkers. They
I know.
moved pipe and run equipment in the field. I sometimes I felt bad I didn't leave any house here for Sonia.
You know, as fun as kids can be, I'm sure it was nice to have a quiet house for a minute.
They were too tired.
That's true. That's true. I know my mom, she told me a few stories about when she was just little. She'd always try and you guys would find her out in the crowds just because she wanted to be out there so bad.
Yeah. Well, I done a lot of my baling hay at night, and there was always a fight which one was going to get to go with me out on the tractor night baling hay. I always had one of the kids with me all the time.
Sometimes two.
Yeah, sometimes two.
I remember when I'd come stay with you when like I was in elementary school, you know, and I remember being in the tractor with you and
Yeah. Well,
falling asleep.
your two older siblings, Brooke and Brandon, they had, well, Brooke and I was talking about how they helped me on the tractor, and I'd get up and as soon as the sunlight was up, I'd go move pipe, and Brooke was right there to go out and move pipe with me.
Yeah, I tell you what though, moving pipe. I don't know if I could say I missed that very much. I think it did me good. It did me good, but
Well,
those were some early, cold, wet mornings.
yes, but we had the wheel line, so it
That's
wasn't
true.
that much work. I'm really proud. The kids all want to be back home. I mean, they visit a lot. They've got a lot of memories here, and they talk about their memories. And I've had quite a few of our grandchildren come and spend weeks at a time here in the summertime with us. And I know it's been a pleasure, a joy just to be able to share my joy with them.
I know some of my favorite things here is yeah, being in the tractor with you and then riding in the front bucket of the tractor. I think that was a very favorite thing for the cousins to do, is riding in that front bucket. Build. I think, I think a lot of farmers would kind of get upset if they found out their kids or grandkids were building forts out somewhere. But you actually helped us build the forts.
Yes, always enjoyed watching the kids have fun.
And I think that's the thing a lot of kids are missing nowadays is running around, with that freedom, having the space to run around with that freedom, build stuff, use their imaginations, and that was definitely all here for sure.
Sometimes it upset me just a little bit when they build the fort in the middle of my haystack, though.
And that's understandable. Yeah, or go lay down a bunch of hay out in the field or something
Yep.
like that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I get a little upset when they pay hide and go seek out in my hayfield or grain field, smash it all down.
Smash the house down, or the grain down to make a playhouse.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
different rooms.
But But yeah, I remember playing in the fort that you helped us make, riding in the bucket, helping you guys in your garden. But one thing that always stood out to me was staying the night here and having your breakfast. I don't know what it was, but I just absolutely love
Oh,
staying the night, waking up with that breakfast
well,
with the.
Sonia's always made the best breakfast. Breakfast has always been my main meal, and Sonia made it that way. She made good ones.
It's like the mint and comfrey tea,
Mm-hmm.
some eggs, waffles with your homemade raspberry jam or apricot jam. Some good memories for sure.
Yeah.
Love that. I think I had a few other questions here. Let's see.
Got asking about Glenn's mouse capade.
Mousecapade.
Yeah, Glenn's like,
Glenn, mice fascinated Glenn. He playing with whenever he had a chance. I know one time we had our grain up on the top of our barn, and it was the kids' job to get up on top of the barn and shovel grain down the hole to fill a hole to so I could just crank the grain down to the cows when it's milking. And one night as this got started to milk, and Glenn had went up to push the grain down, and I heard him yelling out there, "Dad! Dad!" And I shut off the milkers and run upstairs to see what was wrong with Glenn. Well, it's all I could see, his feet sticking out of the hole of the grain thing. And I said, "What in the world you doing down there?" And he says, "Dad, there's a mouse up my back." He was kind of afraid to move. So I got his heels and pulled him out of the hole, and I seen a mouse wiggle, so I slapped it like that. Well, he had kind of a mess on his back after after I got done.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
squished that mouse all over his back.
A little bit bigger than a bug, huh? That's funny.
What about the one who brought the mice in the little jar?
Yeah, he caught a bunch of baby mice and had them in a jar, and his mother told him, "I said, don't you take and bring them in the house." Well, they ended up down in his room, and during the night they rolled out of his bed, and the glass broke, and so we had the mice for just a little while in our house.
Had a little mouse problem there. Oh man. See, I guess you talked about Katrina being little, wanting to milk cows. You got the mice story with Glenn. Do you have any funny stories of my mom when she was little?
Well, your mom had a mind of her own. I mean, she was, we could talk to Katrina and just raise her voice, and boy, the old tears would just start running down her face. But Renee was altogether different. If you tell her we're going to give her a paddle, she'd go out and get a stick to bring back to give her paddling with. One time she said a bad word, and Sonia said, "I'm going to wash your mouth out with soap." She grabbed the soap and put it in her mouth.
Sounds like my little sister. I wonder where they got that from.
They had different personalities, but I love both their personalities. Each one of our children had their different personality, and each one of them brought a lot of joy in our home.
Valerie, she was always with Dad.
Yeah, she was my little shadow.
Sheila was little but mighty. Her and Valerie would move pipe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they'd each one get on one end of pipe, and They move pipe together. I mean, the kids had their ups and downs, you know, brothers, sisters are, but I think our kids, we always eat together, had prayer together.
Always
I mean,
waited for Gary to come in from chores to eat.
I know one Christmas morning, I usually started my milking around 4 o'clock, and I was one that tried to keep my cows on a perfect schedule. And this one Christmas morning, I got up and I seen the lights was on in the barn, and I heard the milkers a going. I wonder what in the world's going on. Well, the three older girls was out. The other two was too young. Well, let's see, I think Valerie was out there too, wasn't she? So all four girls was out there.
Well, Glenn too.
Glenn. Well, they had my milking about all done. Here it was, 4 o'clock, and they were just pretty near finishing up with my milking. Well, at first, it kind of upset me because it wasn't the cow's time to milk. But then it just softened my heart. The best Christmas present I could ever have.
Yeah, it's like something they did for you, but also for them so they could get to their Christmas a little earlier.
Right. Well, they always had to wait till I got in from choring, and most of the time I got a little bigger. Of course, they were out helping me chore, but when they were real small, they waited to Christmas morning to open the presents, so they was always kind of anxious. But it really thrilled me to see the kids have that much interest in the cows, and I think they all love cows. In fact, Glenn's got a little Jersey cow out there now he milks.
I think it was our 10th anniversary when we wanted to go out. Tell about that.
Yeah, on our 10th anniversary, we wanted to go out and do something real special, and so Sonia, she spent the evening out helping me milk the cows. The kids were real small, and when we got all done milking, we come in the house and we had the table all set up fancy with candlelight, and the kids had dinner all ready for us. Macaroni and cheese.
How many remember what they had on an anniversary? I'll never forget that one.
Macaroni and cheese on the 10th anniversary.
but they took our orders, and we sit down and they served us our milk and our macaroni and cheese and bread and butter. And then they had a nice salad made too. And then Glenn had made a cake, wasn't it? And he was really thrilled about trying to see us eat that cake. Well, we couldn't quite eat it. So later on we put it out and the dog wouldn't eat it. Then we picked it up and took it out to the pigs wouldn't eat it. He was proud of that cake. I think it had way too much salt in it.
I don't know.
Oh.
And
Sawdust and salt.
I don't know what he made it with.
But Glenn, when he was a little kid, he all loved to cook, and he probably enjoyed in the house with his mother cooking more than the girls did. But
He really didn't like to wash dishes.
no, he didn't like to wash dishes. So we make him wash dishes to get his hands clean.
He invites you over for some good meals now, doesn't he?
Oh boy, he's a good cook. I think he works right beside Linda cooking Sunny dinners. Yeah, he's a good cook. Yeah.
Good. You kind of talked about some of the older kids and a little bit with the younger girls. Is there any other memories with Sheila that stand out?
Well, Sheila was always our timid one. Valerie's our outgoing one. So when you take her to the store and she lives hiding behind her skirt, Valerie's off talking to somebody else.
So
But
I think this is when a story I heard when she was older and dating Travis. Didn't she sneak him in something one time?
no, we had the policy in our home that you go on 3 dates, then you date somebody else. I mean, we didn't want the kids getting too serious with one certain person, so that was our policy. You have 3 dates with one, and then before you can date him again, you've got to date somebody else. Well, somebody else will come in the house to pick Sheila up, but we found out later why it was one of Travis's friends. So she would, he'd come in and get her, and then it was Travis's date.
They had the system figured out, huh?
Yeah, they had the system figured out and upset Sonia quite a bit, but one night she was asleep and she thought to come to her, just don't worry about it. Sheila will take care of herself. And so will Travis. So from then on, we just really,
They stuck around, huh?
well,
Okay, so how about you talked about Valerie a little bit, being a little bit more outgoing. You have any other stories about her?
she loved animals just like I did. Like I say, she's partner my shadow. She loved to be with me, probably more than any of the other kids.
How about
And,
Delane?
well, Jelaine was more the mama's girl, wasn't she? Jelaine had asthma real bad, so she couldn't come out in the wheat field and the hay field and spend any time in the barn. I mean, I think she wanted to, but she just wasn't able to. But Sonia and hers been real close. I mean, we had her alone for the last 7 years of her life, and so she's been real close as far as Jelaine being able to go out in the field with me and be in the barn. It just, I know she wanted to, but she couldn't.
She's independent, though. Remember her bicycle?
Yeah, she was a very independent girl. Uh, I know one time she brought her bicycle and asked me if I would fix it. And at the time I was busy doing something else. As soon as I get done here, I'll try to get it done. Well, when I got done with what I was doing, she had it all fixed. She's always independent. She done everything she could by herself.
And probably, I mean, yeah, sometimes it's nice just to teach kids that they can fix their own problems.
Yeah. Well, her mother's a lot that way. If I was Sonia to ask me to do something and I didn't get it done right pronto, it all got done before I
Pronto,
got.
sometimes like the drip in the sink, it finally fixed it, so it'd be fixed.
Another thing one that comes to mind that my mom told me about is she felt so special when you called her the apple of your eye, and then found out later that they were all the apples of your eye.
Well, they were.
You want to talk about that
I
a
know.
little bit?
Well, I never had any favor, but I enjoyed being with every one of them, and I just let them know they was the apple of my eye.
Your kids feel like they were special.
I don't think there was anything more important. And they were very special to me. Each child that come into our home was just something special. We had our children real fast. Katrina was just a year like a day when Glenn was born. And it was just a little over a year when Renee was born. But each one of them was very, very, very special. I can't say that I loved one more than the other because they just really close to my heart. And I just couldn't ask for a better son. We've worked together all of our life and we've had very, very few misunderstandings. And today he treats me like a king. I mean, just, I've always loved to farm and he's made every way possible to get me out on the swather or out baling hay. I mean, it's just, I couldn't ask for a better son.
That doesn't happen very often. Sometimes it's working with family is not easy for most people. So,
Well, that's, and you know, in our married life, we've had a lot of, well, I don't know what you call them, foster kids, but first off, we had, who was we have first? Well, we had a Winston.
Jim McLean.
Oh yeah, Jim McLean from California. The guy I bought the dairy from come to me one time and says, my bishop has got a young man that needs to get away with the crowd. And Stan says, I just felt like it would be an ideal place to have him come and spend some time with us. And so Jim McLean come and he spent the summer with us. And I was told not to give him any pay. He was just to work for his room and board. But he was such a fine young man. He worked hard, side by side with Glenn. He was just a fine young man. So I paid him just a little bit to make him feel good. And it was, I guess if I'd listened to his bishop, I'd been better off. But when he got back, he had a little bit of money and he got back in with the same crowd. And he called and wanted to come the next year, and I was thrilled that he wanted to come back, and so he come back, and he was all different boy. He'd been using drugs, and just I couldn't tell him to go out and do things. He just kind of balked. And one day I was in the house, and Sonia says, "Jim, I'm going to wash today. Would you bring the clothes up so I can wash?" And he said, "You want to wash them? Go get them yourself." And I says, "Jim, you just go down and get those clothes, pack them in your bag, and head back for California." I says, "We're not going to put up with that in our home." And he's called several times after that. I kind of lost track of him, but he's apologized and felt bad the way he acted, but we'd never had that in our home, and I wasn't going to have it.
Yeah.
And then we took a little Indian foster boy, on the church replacement program, we had Winston for, 2 years, 2.5 years. And him and Glenn got along good. After Winston got married, we come back and visit quite often, and I was daddy, and to his kids, I was grandpa, grandma and grandpa. But there again, he got using alcohol and died an alcoholic at what, 40 years old? 30 years old. Then we've had a nephew that was having trouble, and we had him for a couple of years. And then we had another niece that was having trouble. We had a few years, and she's turned out to be a wonderful young lady. You've probably met her at reunion, Libby. And and then we had when who was you pregnant with, Sheila? When Herda coming?
Oh, Margie and Herda.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Valerie was a baby.
Yeah, Valerie was just a baby, and Sonia was working in at Anderson Lumber, and we needed somebody to kind of watch the little kids. They'd called her in for inventory, and there was a neighbor over Riverside, guy at Riverside had a young lady that had visited from Holland, and so he suggested she come over and babysit while Sonia was at work. Well, when she left, went back to Holland, she wrote us a letter and asked if we wouldn't think of sponsor her sister. She had such a wonderful time with this family over in Riverside, and she wanted to know if we would sponsor her sister. And we was quite thrilled about it, so we wrote back, told her we would be glad to. Margie Balls. And well, when she got here, we found out she was just a couple of years younger than Sonia. She was an older sister.
That's funny.
But we loved Margie. I mean, she did have kind of a dislike for the male sex, no matter what it was, a dog. She disliked males. But she spent a year with us, and she loved. Well, and we also had, year after we was married, just had our house built. Sonia's dad come to us and wanted to know if he built a bedroom and a bathroom downstairs, if he couldn't live with us. So we had Sonia's dad live with us for 27 years. So we've always had a big house full, and then when the kids all left home, and we had hired help, I had a little trailer house out here for the hired help, but they ate all of our meals with us. So all of our hired help become just part of the family. In fact, we had one young man that stayed with us for about 6 years. He's been over here a couple of times just in the last week and talking about old memories and the best time he's ever had is working here.
Same thing Margie said. She says it's the best year of my life.
But we have tried to help individuals and serve others, and we've had a joyful life.
And where are we at on grandkids now and great grandkids?
Well,
Remember?
we've got 30 grandchildren, and I have 35 that with the three that's coming this year.
So what's it like thinking back to, you know, living being in that situation where you didn't have a house or a job to looking at the posterity now? What's that like?
It's a thrill.
We're
I mean,
rich beyond measure with our family.
we look at our poster, and I just love each one of them. Glenn's adopted 12, and as he's adopted those kids, I couldn't love them anymore if there was his. Each one of we've loved. I can't say that we love our own blooded children any more than we love the ones Glenn has brought into his home, Glenn and Linda.
I know I've heard from a few different people. You love your kids, obviously, and boy, on the rare occasion I can get all three of my kids to sit on my lap for more than 5 seconds, it's just the best feeling in the world,
It is.
But I can't imagine, I've heard that feeling like, oh, just wait till you have grandkids, and it's just like seeing that continue on. It must be such a special feeling.
It is. I've told our kids, if I'd known the grandkids was much fun, I'd had them first. You can spoil that and send them home.
Exactly. Yeah, very smart, for sure. Yeah,
But it's been a thrill having grandkids come and spend summers with us. And I've always felt bad when your dad kept you busy and you wasn't able to.
I think it seemed like after about fifth grade, fourth or fifth grade, they kept me too busy to come and stay more than a few days with you.
Yeah.
We always had calves to feed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was about that time when
And when my folks' grandkids had come up, see my folks, why, everybody'd end up down here, all the kids. You talk to them, and they've got a lot of wonderful memories of being down here.
All Craig's kids, wonderful kids.
Yeah, yeah. When Craig's kids come from Kansas, why, they was always down here, and we love to have them.
just kind of thinking about what we were talking about before we got the camera out. It seems like I've never really seen you two upset or mad about anything. You've always seemed so happy.
Oh,
And I know there's moments, behind the scenes for
there's
sure.
been a few times she's loaded the kids in the car, and kids all hang out the back window and crying.
No, a majority of the time of our married life, we've come to grips. And
She's always been a forgiver. She's always never hold a grudge.
I feel like a gift from my Heavenly Father, a gift of forgiveness. Because I just can't understand. What? I don't understand why they're holding a grudge.
I told her we had to get mad at each other once in a while. It's so much fun making up.
That's why the sink didn't get fixed. So, what would you say are some of, because, like I said, the majority of the time that I see you guys, you're always happy and, love to be around each other. You love when you see your family. What would you say is the reason behind the joy that you see in your life?
Being open with each other. never holding secrets. Was always able to sit down and talk things out.
Well, I think our marriage has been, there's three of us. God, you and I.
We've always felt religion was very important in our lives, and we have tried to serve in any way possible. It's I think the best 2 years of our life is when we spent together in the mission field, working side by side. And I think that, looking back,
Highlight, hasn't it?
it's been a highlight in our life. Just and then before we went on our full-time mission, we spent 27 months at the Fort Hall Indian Branch, serving there as service missionaries, and we worked together there. I mean, we went to church at Fort Hall, and we've always tried, like I told you, we've always planned together, and I don't think I've ever bought a thing for the farm that we haven't talked it over before.
Likewise for the house.
I loved going to church when I was young. I enjoyed. We had good teachers, and I loved church when I was young. And I don't know. I think going on a mission and watching how the gospel changes people's lives, brings joy in their lives. The gospel's always brought joy in my life. I mean, serving. And when I got home off the mission, the Riverton elders and the Pingree elders made up the fifth quorum of elders. And I was called to serve here in Riverton. And we met together once a month. And so I was able to serve as you might say, as an elders quorum president. And then later on, I was called into the 70s quorum and served there, and served 7 years as the senior president of the 70s quorum, and that was mostly doing missionary work. And throughout the years, Sonia and I spent 3 different stake missions, and we've worked together as ward missionaries. So most of my calling has been, you might say, in missionary work, which I've loved.
So from all your experiences and the things that you've learned from the gospel, what advice would you give your kids and grandkids and your posterity? It's a big
Just keep the commandments. Show our Jesus Christ that you love him through keeping his commandments. I don't think there's anything in the world that brings more joy into a person's life than the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, when I was in the mission field, we met a Lamanite man. When we first met him, he had just broke his back, so we went to his place and we taught him the gospel. But in the conversations, he said, I've studied all different religions. He says, when I was young, I was going to be a Jesuit priest in the Catholic Church. But there's things he says, a lot of good things in the church, but there's things I just didn't understand. But anyway, when we taught him the gospel and baptized him, he says, all the things I've done in my time, he says, the gospel of Jesus Christ has brought me the most joy. And from then on, my companion and I didn't have to look for contacts. Everywhere he went, he shared the gospel. He shared his testimony. And we, looking back on my mission, Minot, Dakota was my favorite place in the mission field, just because of the people was able to teach there. Like I say, the gospel has brought more joy in my life than anything, next to my good wife and family. Turning her back on the church because of the, you might say, the faults of a good man. It just breaks my heart to see family and good friends turn their back on the prophet. I do have a testimony of the gospel. I know that Joseph Smith was a true prophet of God, and it's in his hands to bring the gospel back to the earth, that we enjoy the blessing of it in these latter days.
But you've done a lot of good, being a good example. I know for me, and just, the situation that my mom and my family's had to go through. You've been really that constant example for me in my life, I think.
Well, I've tried to, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. Like I say, can't think of a thing I'd change in my life. And I feel that I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what's on the other side of the veil. I hate to leave everybody, but I'm actually looking forward to seeing what lays ahead. I look at it as a graduation.
There's not a lot of people that can look back and say that, so I think that's something pretty special. With all the ups and downs, to look back and be able to say you wouldn't change anything, I think
No.
it's a good thing to have. Well, thank you for telling me all these great memories and these great pearls of wisdom. I appreciate it.
Well, glad to do it. I've enjoyed your visit.
I've got one other favor.
If I go to church or hear a song at church, I guess that's when I whistle all week.
Do you remember which one it was?
Well, I didn't go to church this week.
Or the last. Well, what would be your favorite hymn you like to whistle?
What's that?
Have I done anything
Oh,
in the
yeah.
world today?
Yeah.
Is the Spirit of God like a...
I'm sorry.
He's got too big of a smile on his face.
But out in the field by myself, sometimes a person, when he's out by himself, you get wondering, and then things that shouldn't come to your mind come in your mind. And, whistling's always kind of kept things above where my mind should be.
Is there a song, whistling while you work, or something like that as well? Something something like that. It's a thing. So
No, I just
I've
whatever.
heard him, not anything special.
Sometimes I just whistle the whistle. Not, I've
that's
done.
another favorite thing. You sitting in that corner chair and just whistling.